The summer sun slants through the windshield as I drive our family SUV north along Route 89. My hands rest easy on the steering wheel, muscle memory guiding us toward the Vermont border. In the rearview mirror, I catch glimpses of Howard and Tessa, heads bent toward the shared tablet between them. Cartoon music floating forward in cheerful bursts. They should put us up for sainthood, I say to Micah, nodding toward the back seat. 4 hours and not a single are we there yet. Micah doesn't laugh. His body has gone rigid beside me, shoulders squared against the passenger door as he studies the approaching highway signs. Laine. His voice drops to barely above a whisper. Pull over, right now. My fingers tighten instinctively around the wheel. What? We're making good time. Pull over. The urgency in his tone sends a cold ripple down my spine. Micah never interrupts, never commands. The man who spent 20 minutes yesterday debating dinner options is suddenly giving orders. I signal and ease onto the shoulder, heart hammering against my ribs. The kids don't even look up. What's wrong? I ask, putting the car in park but leaving the engine running. The air conditioning keeps the July heat at bay, but something about Micah's expression makes me shiver. He points to a green highway sign. Vermont border, 12 miles. The bag, he says simply. Your parents' duffel. BEME. 3 days earlier, we'd been loading the car when my father appeared in our driveway. A gray, nondescript duffel bag slung over his shoulder. He'd set it in our trunk with a casualness that felt rehearsed. Could you bring this up for us? Dad had asked, his tone deliberately light. We're flying up tomorrow, and the airline's gotten so strict about baggage allowances. I'd noticed the slight hesitation before Mom added, just some extra clothes. You know how your father overpacks. She'd laughed then, the sound brittle against the summer air. Kids, pause that for a minute. Micah's voice pulls me back to the present. Mom and I need to check something. Their protests follow us as we walk to the rear of the SUV. The afternoon heat hits like a wall after the air-conditioned interior. Traffic rushes past, creating gusts of wind that tug at my hair. Micah pops the trunk and reaches for the gray duffel. I grab his wrist. What are you doing? Something's wrong with this bag. I've been trying to figure out what's been bothering me since your dad handed it over. The way they both looked afterward like they'd already gotten away with something. He unzips the duffel, revealing neatly folded towels and clothing. For a moment, I feel foolish, until Micah reaches into a small toiletry bag tucked along one side and pulls out vacuum-sealed packets, their contents disguised by opaque plastic. My stomach drops. The world narrows to those small, innocent-looking packages. My hands, which had been trembling since Micah first spoke, suddenly go still. Understanding clicks into place with terrible clarity. They put that in our car, I whisper, the words burning my throat. With our kids. I look toward the front seats where Howard and Tessa sit oblivious, caught in the bright animation on their screen. The magnitude of what my parents have done, what they've risked, slams into me like a physical blow. If we'd crossed the border. My voice trails off. Micah finishes the thought. Border Patrol would have found it. We'd be arrested. The kids would end up in social services custody while we sat in a detention center. He looks at me, eyes dark with controlled anger. They used you, Laine. Used your reliability. They knew you wouldn't check the bag because they're your parents and you trust them. The realization cuts deeper than the betrayal itself. My whole life I've been the responsible one, the fixer, the one who could be counted on. And they've weaponized that trust against me, against my children. I reach for my phone. Border Patrol is just miles ahead. Whatever's in those packages needs to be reported. But another thought freezes my finger above the screen. If I make that call, my parents become criminals. And with a sickening clarity, I realize they've ensured I'm implicated too. Their perfect, reliable daughter, the unwitting mule. What do we do? I ask, staring at those innocent-looking packets, nestled among beach towels and sunscreen. The answer stretches before us, like the long road back home, complicated and treacherous. One thing is certain, everything has changed. 15 minutes later, the summer heat fades to a dull throb as I drive our SUV away from the border, my hands gripping the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles turn white. In the back seat, Howard and Tessa have returned to their cartoon, oblivious to how close we just came to disaster. Micah sits beside me, phone in hand, scrolling through contacts. Call Delaney, I say, my voice steadier than I feel. She might know something. My sister answers on the third ring, her voice falsely bright. Laine, where are you guys? Everyone's waiting. Change of plans, I say carefully. We found something concerning in Dad's bag. A pause stretches between us, too long to be innocent. What bag? The gray duffel Dad asked us to bring. Another pause. Oh, the package, I mean the bag. She stumbles over the correction. What about it? The road blurs before me. My sister's slip echoes in my ears like a gunshot. Package, not bag. I swerve slightly, earning a honk from a passing truck. Laine? Delaney's voice sharpens with concern that sounds rehearsed. Are you okay? I need to go. I hang up, pulling onto the shoulder again. My body shakes uncontrollably as realization floods through me. Not just my parents. Delaney knew too. The family fixer was being fixed, set up to take a fall if necessary. Micah reaches across the console, his hand warm on my arm. Let's find somewhere to stop. We need to regroup. An hour later, we've checked into a roadside motel. The kids bounce on one of the twin beds while Micah stands protectively near them. I pace the faded carpet, my phone clutched in my hand like a grenade with the pin half pulled. When it rings, my father's name flashes on the screen. I answer on speaker. Where are you? Dad asks without preamble. Everyone's been here since noon. We're not coming, I say simply. A beat of silence. What do you mean you're not coming? I think you know, Dad. Honestly, Laine, I have no idea what you're talking about. His confusion sounds genuine, but I've witnessed his performances before. Like when he convinced our elderly neighbor he'd never borrowed her lawnmower, despite it sitting in plain view in our garage. Mom's voice cuts in, closer to the phone now. Honey, everyone's been waiting for you. Your aunt drove all the way from Pittsburgh. Ken. We found what's in the duffel bag, I say flatly. The silence that follows speaks volumes. No questions about what I mean, no confusion. Just silence. Whatever you think you found, Dad begins. Don't. My voice cracks. Don't lie to me anymore. Now listen here, his voice hardens. After everything we've done for you, we're paying for Kyle's private school tuition, because your sister can't. I hang up, my hands trembling again. The familiar weight of family obligation presses down on me, but for once, it's outweighed by something else, fear for my children. They could claim you knew? Micah says quietly, moving away from the kids who are now engrossed in the motel television. If we'd been caught at the border, they could say you agreed to transport it. The reality of our situation lands like a physical blow. Criminal charges. Our children taken away while we sit in a detention center. My lifelong role as the responsible one in the family, the fixer, has escalated to potential criminal liability. Remember last month when they asked us to help with Kyle's tuition? I whisper. $3,000 we couldn't really spare? Micah nods, pulling out his phone. Look at this text from your mother this morning. The message glows accusingly on his screen. Just checking that you remembered to pack the gray bag. Digital evidence of a setup. My mother's seemingly innocent text transformed into something sinister, insurance that we'd be implicated if things went wrong. For a moment, I can't breathe. The motel room spins around me as I grasp the full extent of the betrayal. My entire family conspired to use me as their unwitting mule, gambling with my freedom and my children's security. Micah unzips the duffel bag that sits on the second bed like a live bomb. I take out my phone, hand still shaking slightly, and photograph the contents, the vacuum-sealed packets nestled among beach towels and sunscreen. Evidence. Then I carefully reseal everything exactly as we found it. As I stare at that gray duffel sitting on the motel bed, I wonder if I should confront my parents directly or handle this more strategically. The urge to call them out is overwhelming, but years of experience tell me they'd simply deny everything. What would you do when the people who should protect you try to make you their scapegoat instead? The answer doesn't come easily, but one thing becomes crystal clear: this moment marks the end of something fundamental between us. The daughter they counted on to fix everything is finally broken. 3 days later, the phone rang for the 4th time that morning. I glance at the caller ID, Aunt Patricia, and let it go to voicemail. She'll leave the same message the others did, voice dripping with rehearsed concern. Laine, honey, we're all worried about you. Your mother mentioned you might be having another episode. You know we're here if you need to talk. Another episode. The words curdle in my stomach. 3 separate relatives have called with nearly identical scripts, as if reading from the same teleprompter. A coordinated attack disguised as family concern. My phone buzzes with a notification. Delaney has posted on social media. Sometimes supporting family means standing by them even when they push you away. Prayers for those struggling with reality right now. 17 sympathetic comments follow. None mentioning me by name, all of them about me. I scroll through my text messages. Cousin Ryan. Why'd you bail on the reunion? Everyone's asking. Uncle Stephen. Your mother's heartbroken you abandoned the family gathering. Aunt Margaret. The kids missed playing with their cousins. The invisible noose tightens. They're building a narrative where I'm unstable, unreliable, the exact opposite of who I've always been. I sit at the kitchen table, laptop open to our family's shared photo drive. Something's been nagging at me since we turned around at the border. Years of being the responsible one, the fixer, the steady hand. Was it all just grooming me for bigger things, worse things? My hands shake as I open our financial records. There it is, buried in an old credit report, a Visa card maxed out 3 years ago, in my name. A card I never applied for, never received, never used. The charges coincide perfectly with my parents' surprise kitchen renovation, the one Dad called a miracle of careful saving. Sleep has become a distant memory. Night after night, I lie awake, cataloging interactions, conversations, requests that seemed innocent at the time. The time they asked me to mail an unmarked package to a P.O. box in Nevada. The documents I notarized without reading closely. The investment opportunity Dad needed me to sign as a witness. You're so reliable, Laine. Not like your sister, Mom would say. You've always been our rock. Their safety net, their fall guy. I've started a spreadsheet. Dates, requests, patterns of manipulation. A timeline of exploitation spanning decades. The evidence mounts with each entry, each memory re-examined through this terrible new lens. Something tugs at my sleeve. Howard stands beside me, his 6-year-old face solemn beneath tousled hair. He holds out a crayon drawing 4 stick figures holding hands. It's us, he explains, pointing to each figure. Daddy, you, me, and Tessa. Across the bottom, in wobbly kindergarten letters, we don't need anyone else. I gather him into my arms, his small body warm against mine. For a moment, the knot in my chest loosens. This simple truth from a child's mouth. We are complete. Just us. We don't need anyone else. Later, Micah and I stand in the kitchen, voices low to keep from waking the children. The evening shadows stretch across the tile floor as we deliberate our next steps. They'll just deny everything, Micah says, leaning against the counter. You know how this goes. I look at the calendar on the wall, each day marked with commitments I've made to everyone but myself. Years of saying yes when every instinct screamed no. I've been solving their problems my whole life, I say, the words falling like stones. It stops now. My phone rings. My mother's number. I answer on speaker. Laine? Where's the bag, honey? You were supposed to be here 3 days ago. Her voice carries the familiar tone of gentle accusation wrapped in sweetness. I meet Micah's eyes across the kitchen. We dropped it off at your house the other day without notifying anyone, I say, my voice steadier than it's been in days. If it was that important, you should have carried it yourself. What are you talking about? We need that. No, Mom. You don't get to do this anymore. Laine Elizabeth, I don't know what's gotten into you, but your father and I press the red button, cutting her off mid-sentence. No justifications, no explanations, just a boundary, firm and clear. Micah stares at me, surprise and something like pride crossing his face. I realize I'm standing straighter, shoulders back, chin lifted. For the first time since we discovered the hidden packages, I meet his gaze directly, without flinching. An hour later, the phone rings again. I silence it without looking. Sarah called. Micah says, mentioning his mother. They want us to use their guest house in Asheville. No questions asked. Stay as long as we need. The contrast hits me like a physical blow, this immediate, unconditional support versus my family's web of manipulation and conditions. I'll handle the logistics, Micah continues. You focus on the kids. For once, I don't argue. Don't insist on managing everything myself. Thank you, I say simply, accepting help without the weight of guilt. I've carried my entire adult life. The next morning, I sit in the school administrative office, methodically removing my parents as emergency contacts from every form. Ellen, the administrative assistant who's known our family for years, processes the paperwork without comment until the final signature. I saw your father try to pick up Howard last month, she says quietly. Without you knowing. He said it was a surprise. A chill spreads through me. Another piece of the pattern I hadn't even known about. Thank you for telling me, I say, signing the final form. As I stand to leave, my phone chimes with a text from the school's automated system. Alert. Dale and Marla Westbrook have arrived to collect Howard and Tessa McCarthy. I freeze, staring at the screen. The war has begun. I arrived at the school main hall 2 minutes after receiving the text. My hands grip the emergency contact paperwork as I stride through the front doors, past the colorful bulletin boards announcing the upcoming science fair. The school's familiar scent of floor cleaner and children's art supplies barely registers as I scan for any sign of my parents or children. Mrs. McCarthy. Principal Rivera rises from behind her desk as I enter the office. I understand we have a situation. My parents attempted to remove my children without authorization. I place the documents on her desk, my voice steadier than my heartbeat. I removed them as emergency contacts today. Here's the documentation, along with a timeline of concerning behaviors. The timeline sits between us 3 pages of meticulously documented incidents spanning back 2 years. Next to it, I place my phone with the photos of the hidden packets. These are what they concealed in a bag they asked us to transport across the Vermont border. I flip through the images, noting how Rivera's expression shifts from professional concern to genuine alarm. With our children in the car. Ellen mentioned your parents seemed unusually insistent, Rivera says, reaching for her phone. I'll have security locate Howard and Tessa immediately. Ellen, the school secretary, appears in the doorway. Those grandparents were adamant about taking the children for ice cream. When I explained our procedures, the grandfather said something about family matters being private business. The intercom crackles. Mrs. Rivera, we've confirmed the McCarthy children are not in their classrooms. Fear washes through me, but it quickly hardens into resolve. I need to find my parents. James is meeting us there, Micah says when I call him from the parking lot 2 minutes later. His brother had offered to accompany us immediately after hearing about the unauthorized pickup attempt. He's in uniform. Thought that might help keep things civil. 20 minutes later, we pulled into my parents' driveway, their second house, here in Pittsburgh. Their silver Lexus sits in the circular drive, freshly washed as always. The house looks exactly as it has for 30 years, pristine white siding, black shutters, and perfectly trimmed hedges that have never been allowed to grow an inch beyond my father's specified height. James's police cruiser arrives just as we're getting out. The sight of his uniform gives me an unexpected surge of confidence as we approach the front door. We find them in the living room, surrounded by shopping bags from expensive toy stores. Howard's eyes widen at the sight of a remote-controlled helicopter still in its packaging. Tessa clutches a doll that cost more than our monthly utility bill. There you are. Dad's voice booms with forced joviality that doesn't reach his eyes. We thought we'd surprise the kids with a grandparent day. By attempting to remove them from school without permission? My voice remains controlled, each word precise. Just having some grandparent time, Dad says, defensive aggression creeping into his tone. Since you decided to skip the family reunion. Mom steps forward, placing her hand on Tessa's shoulder. We bought some little presents. Nothing wrong with spoiling our grandchildren, is there? James moves slightly to his left, positioning himself between my parents and the children. I notice him taking in the mountain of expensive gifts, his eyebrows rising slightly. Howard, Tessa, Micah says calmly, please go wait in the hallway while we talk to Grandma and Grandpa. The children hesitate, clearly torn between their new treasures and their father's instruction. Now, please, I add, keeping my tone light but firm. Once they're out of earshot, I turn to my parents. You were removed as emergency contacts. You knew that attempting to take them was unauthorized. Such dramatic language. Mom laughs, the sound brittle against the tension in the room. Unauthorized, as if we're strangers and not family. James discreetly photographs the pile of gifts with his phone. Later, he'll point out that the expensive items far exceed what my parents claim as income on their tax returns, information he's privy to after helping them with financial paperwork last year. We're leaving now, I say. The children will not be returning here without supervision. Standing in my parents' living room, watching them shower my children with gifts, I wonder, should I expose their smuggling attempt right there, or quietly extract my family and cut ties permanently? The satisfaction of confrontation tempts me, but would it bring the closure I needed? The gray duffel, I say suddenly, watching Mom's carefully composed face crack slightly. Where is it now? Dad's eyes flick toward the garage door briefly before he recovers. What duffel? You're not making sense, Laine. Mom steps closer, lowering her voice. Honey, are you feeling all right? You seem stressed. Micah has already gathered the children in the hallway. James positions himself near the front door, his presence a silent reminder of consequences. We'll be filing a report about the attempted unauthorized pickup, James says professionally, for documentation purposes. This is family business, Dad snaps, color rising in his face. It became a legal matter when you attempted to remove children from school without parental consent, James replies evenly. We exit without a scene, our coordination preventing any further manipulation in front of the children. In the car, Howard asks if he can keep the helicopter. I exchange a glance with Micah through the rearview mirror. We'll talk about it later, buddy, I say, watching my childhood home recede in the side mirror. That night, after the children are asleep, my phone lights up with a call from Laine. Her voice sounds panicked, words tumbling out in a rush. Laine, they're planning another border crossing. Tomorrow. And they're furious you left the bag. The next day, the doorbell rang at 8 in the morning. I'd been expecting them. Through the frosted glass, I could make out two figures. One tall, one shorter, standing with an unnatural stillness that suggested rehearsal. Are the kids at Carol's? I asked Micah, who nodded from his position by the kitchen doorway. Dropped them off 20 minutes ago. Howard wanted to know why they couldn't say goodbye to Grandma and Grandpa. What did you tell him? That some goodbyes are better when they're quiet. I opened the door to find my parents wearing expressions of practiced contrition. Mom had applied foundation too heavily, the beige paste settling into the worry lines around her mouth. Dad stood with his shoulders slumped, hands clasped before him like a penitent schoolboy, a posture I'd never seen in 63 years of his life. Laine, sweetheart. Mom stepped forward as if to embrace me, but I remained firmly in the doorway. Her arms dropped awkwardly to her sides. We've been so worried. Can we come in? Dad asked, his voice softening in a way that once would have melted my resolve. There's been a terrible misunderstanding. I stepped aside, allowing them into our living room, but not offering coffee or the usual comforts of hospitality. They perched on the edge of our sofa like visitors, not family. We know things got complicated, Mom began, dabbing at eyes that remained suspiciously dry. But we never meant to put you or the children in any danger. Dad leaned forward, his voice dropping to a confidential whisper. It was just a favor for an old friend. One last thing, and then everything can go back to normal. Normal, I repeated, the word feeling foreign on my tongue. We've already spoken to Dr. Patterson, Mom added, naming our family physician of 20 years. We mentioned your episodes, the increasing instability. Episodes. My voice remained flat. Honey, we're concerned. These accusations, this paranoia. Dad shook his head sadly. It's not like you. You're right about that, I said, walking to the side table where my laptop waited. It's not like me at all. The old Laine would have believed you. The old Laine would have done anything to keep the peace. I opened the computer and hit play on an audio file. My father's voice filled the room. Just put it in your trunk. No one checks family cars at the border. Mom's eyes widened. You recorded us? That was just the beginning, I said, opening a folder on my desktop. Here's the documentation from Howard's school about your unauthorized pickup attempt. The principal remembers Dad claiming I was too unstable to care for my own children. I spread printouts across the coffee table between us, emails stretching back years, bank statements showing mysterious withdrawals whenever I'd granted them access to help with bills, notes from family events where I'd been volunteered for increasingly questionable favors. 23 years of using me as your safety net, your fixer, your scapegoat, I said, my voice steady despite the anger burning in my chest. And then you tried to make me your mule. Laine, you're blowing this completely out of proportion, Dad began, but his voice lacked its usual authoritative edge. I'm not your safety net anymore, I continued, standing taller with each word. I'm not your fixer, and I'm certainly not your mule. The living room felt smaller somehow, the walls pressing in as 2 decades of unspoken truths filled the space between us. Through the window, I could see our neighbor Carol's backyard where my children played, safely distanced from this necessary poison. You have two options, I said, placing my phone on the table. You can leave now and never contact us again, or I call James and report your smuggling attempt. Dad rose to his full height, attempting the intimidation tactic that had worked throughout my childhood. You wouldn't dare. We're your parents. I didn't flinch. Try me. After everything we've done for you, Mom whispered, tears finally appearing on cue. The sacrifices we made. That's the problem, I replied, moving to block the doorway as they instinctively retreated. You've never done anything without expecting twice the return. Something shifted in that moment. I seemed to grow larger, while my parents shrank before me, their manipulations transparent as cellophane in the morning light. They'd never been the giants of my childhood, just ordinary people who'd discovered an extraordinary tool in their daughter's loyalty. We're moving to Asheville next week, I said, opening the front door. Don't contact us again. Dad's face hardened. You'll regret this. When you need us. I stopped needing you the moment you put my children at risk. I held the door wider. Goodbye. They left without another word. Two diminished figures walking down our driveway for the last time. 7 months later, I sat on the porch of our Asheville home, laptop balanced on my knees. In my inbox, a message from Laine glowed with artificial urgency. Laine, they arrested Mom and Dad at the border yesterday. Something about contraband. They need money for legal defense. Please call me as soon as possible. Beyond the porch railing, Howard and Tess chased fireflies across our new lawn, their laughter carrying on the evening breeze. My finger hovered over the delete button as the mountain sunset painted our world in shades of possibility. 6 months later, the morning sunlight streams through my home office window, painting golden rectangles across the polished oak desk. I adjust my camera settings and smile at the client on my laptop screen. The outdoor family session would work perfectly at the botanical gardens, I say, my voice confident as I outline my vision. The azaleas are spectacular this time of year. After we disconnect, I lean back in my chair, savoring the quiet satisfaction of another booking for McCarthy Photography. 6 months in Asheville, and my client list grows weekly. The phone rings again, and I answer without that familiar nod of dread that once accompanied every call from my family. Now, each ring promises opportunity instead of obligation. Our family calendar hangs beside my desk, colorful with entries that make my heart light. Howard's soccer practice, Tessa's art class, weekend hikes with Micah. Each activity chosen for joy rather than duty. No forced family gatherings, no last-minute crises requiring my intervention. The children flourish under our new routine of clear boundaries and consistent expectations. Last week, Howard's teacher commented on his improved confidence. Tessa no longer chews her fingernails. Small victories that validate our difficult choice. My cell phone vibrates against the desk. Unknown number. Is this Laine McCarthy? The woman's voice sounds vaguely familiar. Janet Simmons here. I was speaking with your mother at our church group, and she mentioned you've started a photography business. My daughter's getting married in June, and I'd love to discuss your availability. My stomach tightens momentarily in old reflex. I recognize the familiar pressure to accommodate, to please, to maintain connections to a past life. But the feeling passes quickly, replaced by a calm certainty. I appreciate your interest, but my schedule is fully booked through summer. I reply, my voice steady. I'd be happy to recommend several excellent photographers in your area. But surely you could make an exception? Your mother said. My priority list has changed. I interrupt gently. My children and peace come first now. I hope your daughter has a beautiful wedding day. After we disconnect, I delete the message notification without a trace of anxiety or guilt. The boundaries I've built aren't just walls, they're the foundation of our new life. That evening, laughter fills our backyard as Micah flips burgers on the grill. His parents, brother James, and sister-in-law Eliza gather around our patio table, passing salads and swapping stories. This small circle of genuine support has become our chosen family. Micah raises his glass, the setting sun catching in the amber liquid. To boundaries that protect and choices that heal, he says, his eyes finding mine across the table. I smile back, the expression reaching my eyes in a way that once felt foreign but now comes naturally. The constant vigilance, the expectation of crisis that once shadowed every moment, has gradually lifted. In its place, a simple joy in ordinary days. Later, after guests depart and children sleep, I sit cross-legged on our bedroom floor with our family album open before me. The first page shows us loading the car the day we left Micah's arm protectively around Howard, Tessa's brave smile, my own face determined, but frightened. I slip a new addition into the album, my acceptance letter to the prestigious Ansel Adams Photography Mentorship Program, an opportunity I'd deferred for years while managing everyone else's needs. Beside it, I place the calendar page marking 1 year of therapy, gold stars tracking milestones of healing from family trauma. My hand rests on the final page, where space waits for future photographs, birthdays, graduations, ordinary Tuesdays that will build our new story. As I close our family's new beginning album, I wonder if forgiveness is always necessary for healing, or if sometimes the distance itself is the medicine. What would you choose? To forgive those who used you, or to focus entirely on building your new life free from their influence?